at the firm here, which I can get into that story in a moment. But I do everything from transactional business, both specific to the horse industry and other industries and businesses. We do just some dispute resolution, and the firm, we have a civil litigation department. I personally don't litigate too much anymore, but I have associates who will take matters to court if we can't get them settled beforehand. When it comes to leasing versus licensing, as you asked, that from the perspective of a property owner who has a horse facility that they are not fully utilizing, if you want in trainers, I recommend giving those trainers a license as opposed to a lease to operate their business out of your facility, particularly in Arizona, which is the jurisdiction where most of my practice is, although I'm also licensed to practice law in Oklahoma and Kentucky. In Arizona, if you have a lease, you have some certain inherent property rights and have to follow a judicial process in order to be evicted, et cetera. Whereas if it's a license, your utilization of the property is not exclusive and you can be locked off. And so that's obviously favorable for the property owner who wants to maintain control over the facility.
Okay, thank you for that advice. I appreciate you sharing that with us. And I want to just move on here with a couple other things regarding what I have faced. I'm going to ask you a question right on air. I see a lot of bill of sales. I ask for bill of sales when I'm doing a horse appraisal. And often I see bill of sales that aren't dated. It's just for some, I search them high and low. Have you seen a lot of that?
I haven't seen a lot of that. What I see often is transactions that are done without a purchase contract or a bill of sale, and then those transactions can deteriorate into a dispute for one reason or another. But to have a bill of sale that isn't dated, that's not something that I can tell you I've dealt with. I mean, maybe I have, but it just doesn't
Yeah.
pop out at me.
I mean, I've come across that quite frequently. So I think that often I say to people if they say, "Can you recommend a template?" I say, "No, I can't recommend a template. I don't recommend templates. You hire a
Right.
professional to get the right document that you need." Because often I think that's the case. They may have used a template, and then there's no date on the bill of sale, which can create problems in the future for sure.
Absolutely. You mentioned templates and hiring a professional. From the start of my career, one of the messages that I try to get out to the horse community is if you own horses or even don't own them but are a horse enthusiast and you ride, you know that as a horse owner, you have to rely on professionals, be that a trainer, a farrier, a veterinarian. I mean, one person rarely does it all, right? We have to rely on professional third parties. And I think it's very important, particularly if horses are your business, that we put qualified equine attorneys sort of in that toolbox of professionals that we rely on to make business, happen and things happen in our world. Because without that, you can end up with expensive distractions. The same way a good farrier will prevent, a lameness. A good attorney will make sure that you don't end up having a business transaction deteriorate into a dispute that becomes expensive and time consuming.
Absolutely, and I've seen many of those cases for sure that through time that could have easily been avoided and not come to that fact of the dispute if it was just ironed out earlier and hiring the professional. I think as an appraiser, what I've experienced through the years is that people will say, "Oh, here's let's just say it's a divorce dispute." And then, oh, here's the trainer. The trainer's given the value, and I get the one page argument of what the value of the horse is. And I always say, okay, well, let me just do what I do professionally, and I'll show you the comparables, etc. For that, for that particular case. But this is great. I'm learning a lot from you, and I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. But I wanted to step back a minute, and I want to share a story with you. When I was about 16 years old, and I grew up in Bergen County, which is right outside of New York City. So I would say to my mom, "I want a horse," and she'd say, "We don't have enough room for a horse." So I'd go to that little local county, the county barn, and do whatever I could to take a riding lesson. So as soon as I got my driver's license, I scooted off to a farm about 30 miles away up in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. And there was a man there that had a horse, and, you know, oh, I can groom him, and I would take care of that horse. But he handed me a saddle and he said, "Here, I have a job for you. I want you to take this saddle home with you. And I want you to clean it. And it has a lot of tooling on it, and you can use a little, a little of this soap." I remember him giving me a little glycerin soap or whatever the case might have been. But it was a saddle, and the name of the saddle was Billy Cook. So when I read your article, it stood out to me. And I have to tell you, so many memories came back to me of having that Billy Cook saddle. Now, you got to remember, I was about 92 pounds and I was 17 years old. And I was picking up this Billy Cook saddle that belonged to a man that was probably 6'2" and weighed, 200 pounds. And that saddle was quite heavy, but I could lift it and I could actually put it up on his horse. But it just brought back so many fond memories of what a Billy Cook saddle was. So I want to hear a little bit of that story because that's a fine saddle maker. And now I understand you have purchased the company.
Yeah. Well, like you, my Billy Cook, I guess the beginning of my Billy Cook experience began in New Jersey. As I mentioned, before I was born, my family had already been in horses for some time, and my grandfather found himself in Greenville, Texas, where the Billy Cook shop had been previously in 1976, which was, again, before I was born. And he bought two saddles there, one for my uncle and one for my father. And from the time I was born and began riding, before I could even tie my own shoes, my fondest and earliest memories are sitting in front of my dad or my uncle in a saddle and looking down at that saddle horn that said Billy Cook Roper on it. And so from the time I was a little kid, I always associated, those good memories with, those saddles, which were, really works of art. It sounds like the one that you probably were handling was also, an older vintage one. If you were 17 and back then. And anyway, in 1991, Billy Cook moved his factory to Sulphur, Oklahoma. And there's a lot of history with the company that I could bore you with. But the short version is he took control back of the brand and he moved the company from Greenville to Sulphur, Oklahoma, where it remains today. And in 2019, Billy passed away. And as working as a lawyer, I had also taken on a couple of other roles in life, and I had stepped back from one in 2019, which had freed up some bandwidth. And so when I found out that Billy had passed away, I got curious about what was going to happen with the company. And as it turned out, it was sort of on the brink of bankruptcy. And I thought it was a good opportunity for me to deploy my skill set and the sort of extra bandwidth that I had to try and save that brand because it meant so much to me. And in so doing, we saved more than 20 jobs. We currently have, I think, 27 people working for us at the factory. We have sort of an assembly line there, but everyone who works there is a true artisan. The only parts of the process that are mechanized are we use a clicker press to stamp out some of the parts from the hides rather than hand cutting everything. And we also use a sewing machine, but everything else is completely done by hand from, nailing on the pommel wraps to stitching the cantle binders and tooling on all of everything and dyeing the edges and, finishing the saddles and oiling them and getting them ready for shipping. And everyone who works at that shop is really an asset to the company. We wouldn't have a business if it wasn't for their skills. I just kind of came in and renegotiated some of the debt and restructured the company and, trying to restore the reputation of the company to that quality that you and I know of it from, its early years. Because after the company moved to Sulphur, there was sort of a decline in quality for a period of time. I think they were chasing volume production rather than high quality stuff for a little while. Billy's business model changed. And so we're restoring the integrity of the brand, and I'm really proud of what we're doing there.
Well, I'm really proud of you too, because I have to say, it just brought back. I read that article, and it brought back, I could almost smell the leather. I remember so clearly trying to get that saddle because it was so heavy into, the garage area where I was going to clean it. And that was just such a precious time that for me, because I didn't own a horse and I wanted to own a horse, I had the saddle and I was getting closer. I was getting closer to getting that horse because now I had the saddle And
Sure.
like you said, the quality of the saddle maker that he did. It said that what was it, 1953 is when he opened that, and he built 75 saddles. And each one was just done with such precision and,
Yeah.
like you said, quality. So I'm glad to see that you're going to help preserve that legacy, and the company's going to, be under your leadership, and you save those jobs, because that artisan, that you don't always find that any longer in today's, I mean, some, yes, of course there still are great saddle companies out there, but that was very special and very special to me. So I just wanted to
Absolutely. Well,
thank you for that.
Billy himself had trained everybody who works there, and we've got him focused now on we're only using the best materials, and we've slowed down production quite a bit to make sure that everything is exactly as it should be. And I think that the saddle business may never make me rich, but I'm going to have a lot of fun doing it, and we're going to build products that people have great memories with, the way that you and I both have. And I think that's really important to keep the art form of saddle making in this country alive, and to put a product in people's hands that they can not only be proud of and think is beautiful when they own it and possess it, but that they'll also build bonds around, if you will. I think that's really important.
Now, do you make saddlebags still, or the billy bag? What are the billy bags? I read about the billy bag. They're
The
like
Billy bag is
handbags.
yeah, is a line of handbags and purses that we put out that we're sort of still in the development phase on, but you can order one. We have a couple of different styles that you can view on the website, and always call the shop if you have questions, and either speak to myself if I'm in town in Oklahoma, or my general manager, Jody Raymer. And we, of course, are also making saddlebags and a full line of tack, head stalls, breast collars, spur straps, reins. Uh, we do some harness leather stuff if people are into the kind of driving and that sort of thing. Um, we do it all, and we have a saddle for every Western discipline, from cutting and cow horse stuff to barrel racers or team roping and day working cowboys. We got ranch saddles that are really spectacular. In fact, we have a new model that we just finished developing when I was in town a couple of weeks ago, that we'll be putting up on the website hopefully by the end of this month. We'll get it pictured and up there. It's really a heavy duty tree with some good set of swells on the front. All rough out leather, and really what those working cowboys want to see.
Now that's out in Oklahoma,
Yeah, the saddle shop's still in Sulphur, Oklahoma,
in Sulphur, Oklahoma.
where it's been since 1991. So the company's been around for 70 years, but the saddle shop's been based in Sulphur, Oklahoma since 1991. So for about, what is that, 32 years, I guess.
Oh, well, I'm gonna have to make my way out there and do a visit, come and see these saddles for sure. But again, I'm grateful that you did that, and it could have been something that was lost. So now it's going to continue because of you and the staff and the efforts that you've put forth. But we're almost out of time. Time just goes too fast on these shows. But I would love to have you back at another point in time, and also, I'd like to share this on different venues. I have a Facebook page that we'll share it on, and we'll also put it up. I'll share it with you. Your Facebook is facebook.com/equine attorneys. How'd you get that?
Oh gosh, I'm embarrassed to say I don't think I'm managing that Facebook page very much anymore. Sure, it still exists, but most of what I'm doing on social media anyway is just on the Genuine Billy Cook Instagram page. I think we also have a Genuine Billy Cook Facebook, but don't get on Facebook too much. Um, but the equine attorneys, yeah, I guess we got that, gosh, maybe a decade or more
At
ago, and
least.
for a long time I relied on that sort of marketing. But most of our business now at the firm is word of mouth. We've been
I
doing it
had
for so.
www.equineattorneys. I bought, I think, when the internet started to populate years ago, and I let it go. So somebody got it, but I'm glad to see that you have that for Facebook. But Adam, I just want to thank you for doing what you're doing. You sound like a man that's making a difference in the world, and not only your law practice, but in all the things that you're passionate about. I want to thank your grandfather and your father. for instilling this into you, because that's what I was blessed with too. My dad took me horseback riding when I was about 6 years old to